There are times in life when a woman may feel completely alone, not because she has wronged others, but because she has grown, evolved, and walked away from what no longer serves her peace. There comes a time when you look around and realize there is no one to call, no one to listen, and no one who truly understands, and that feeling can be heavy, very heavy, but let me remind you of something powerful. Loneliness is not a sign that you have failed. It may be a sign that you are being protected, protected from gossip, protected from heartbreak, protected from the wrong company. Sometimes the absence of people is the presence of divine mercy. My dear sister, if you find yourself alone, don't rush to blame yourself. Don't assume something must be wrong with you. Society often tries to convince us that if we are lonely, we are unwanted, unlovable, somehow broken, but this is not the truth. Loneliness is not a sign that you are failing. It can be a sign that you are being prepared. It can be a sign that you are being protected from what is not meant for you. Many great people in history, even the most beloved souls to walk this earth, went through moments of deep solitude. Not because they were rejected by their Lord, but because they were being taught, strengthened, and elevated. There is wisdom in isolation, even if it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it is during those quiet, tear-filled nights that the soul learns to stand, that the heart learns to pray sincerely, that the mind learns to detach from the noise of the world and reconnect with the one who created it. When you are surrounded by people, your heart can get distracted. You may rely on them for comfort, for attention, for love, but when all of that is taken away, you are gently pushed to rely on the one who never leaves, the one who listens when no one else does, the one who understands your silence, your sadness, your fatigue. Being alone is not being abandoned, it is sometimes being chosen. Chosen for a time of quiet reflection. Chosen to strengthen your relationship with your Creator. Chosen to outgrow old patterns, to heal, to learn who you truly are without the influence of others. And maybe, just maybe, you're not actually alone. Maybe your loneliness is just a mislabel for what is really spiritual privacy, a sacred pause in life where your soul is being allowed to breathe away from the pressure of pleasing everyone else. Think about it. We live in a world where being surrounded is praised and solitude is questioned. But not all company brings goodness, not every smile is sincere, and not every friendship feeds your soul. There are some kinds of loneliness that are far safer than fake companionship. So when you walk into a room and no one notices, when your phone stays silent, when invitations never come and no one remembers your name, don't let your heart conclude that you are unworthy. Because the truth is, Allah never left, even if people have, and His presence is not less than anyone else's, it's more. It is everything, and sometimes until we are alone, we never really feel it. My dear sister, there are moments when the pain becomes too much to explain, when your heart carries so many silent burdens that even if someone were to ask you what's wrong, you wouldn't know where to begin. You smile because that's what people expect. You say Alhamdulillah, even though you feel like you're crumbling inside. You carry on not because you're okay, but because you don't know what else to do. And in the middle of that storm, in that place where no one really sees you, I want to remind you of something so powerful, so comforting. Allah knows. He knows every tear you've cried in secret, every time you held back your words because you didn't want to burden anyone, every night you stayed awake replaying things in your mind, trying to understand why certain people changed, why you were left behind, why you feel this way. Allah knows, not like people know, not from a distance, not from assumption, but fully, intimately, completely. He knows the weight in your chest. He knows the thoughts you're afraid to admit. He knows the sincerity behind your silent does, the ones you whisper while your head is on the pillow, staring at the ceiling, feeling like no one in the world understands. But He does, and not only does He know, He cares. He doesn't just watch you struggle, He watches over you while you struggle. He protects you in ways you may never even recognize. He sends ease in forms you sometimes overlook, a delayed hardship, a softened heart, a conversation that lifts your mood, a verse you accidentally come across that feels like it was written just for you. You see, when people don't see your effort, it can feel discouraging. When they don't appreciate your loyalty, your kindness, your sincerity, it can break your heart. But never think that your efforts are wasted just because people didn't acknowledge them. The one who created you, the one who wrote your story before anyone else knew your name, he sees every ounce of your striving. Not a single tear goes unnoticed. Not a single act of patience is lost. Not a single moment of self-restraint or strength is forgotten. And even when you fail, he knows the struggle behind the failure. He knows when you're trying. He knows when you're exhausted but still holding on to faith. He knows when your heart wants to give up, but you keep showing up in prayer anyway, even if your sujood is shaky. Even if your dua is broken, even if all you can say is, Ya Allah, I don't know what to say anymore, he knows and he listens, and that alone should remind you you are not invisible, you're not forgotten. You're not abandoned, you're not weak just because you feel pain, you're human. And being seen by Allah in your most vulnerable state is not something to be ashamed of. It's something sacred, because when people stop checking on you, when friends distance themselves, when no one sees how much you're holding together behind that quiet smile, he still does, and he never stops watching, never stops caring, never stops understanding even when you don't understand what you're going through. Would you like me to continue with the next segment, the value of inner peace over external company? Or do you want more reflection within this same keynote before moving forward? My dear sister, we live in a world that glorifies popularity, that rewards noise, that praises the ones surrounded by people, flooded with attention, constantly seen. And in this world, solitude is often misunderstood. Being alone is seen as a problem, as something to escape, as a sign that something is wrong. But I want to remind you, not all company is a blessing, and not all loneliness is a curse. There is something profoundly beautiful about a soul that is at peace within itself. A woman who can sit quietly in her own presence without needing to be constantly entertained or reassured by others. A woman whose calm does not depend on the crowd around her, but on the clarity within her. Inner peace is more valuable than shallow companionship. You see, it's very possible to be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone. You can laugh with them, eat with them, share photos with them, and still go home feeling hollow, because connection is not about proximity, it's about depth. It's about sincerity, and unfortunately, not every gathering gives life to the soul. Some leave you feeling heavier, drained, spiritually distant, confused about who you really are. But when you begin to prioritize your peace, when you value your heart and your deen more than your need to belong, you start to see things differently. You begin to ask, is this conversation drawing me closer to Allah or pulling me further away? Do I feel uplifted after being with them? Or do I feel lost? Do I laugh in their company but cry when I'm alone? Sometimes the most dangerous thing is not being alone, it's being around the wrong people and thinking that's better than solitude. True peace doesn't come from loud voices or full rooms. It comes from stillness inside the heart. A stillness that comes when your heart is clean, when your mind is honest, when your connection with Allah is alive, even if no one else understands it. That peace, when protected, becomes a shield. A strength, a quiet type of joy that doesn't need approval from anyone else to exist. And here's something many people learn too late. When you protect your peace, you begin to protect your worth. You stop chasing attention. You stop begging to be included. You stop settling for half-hearted relationships. And instead, you start growing quietly, powerfully, authentically. You realize you don't need dozens of people around you to feel loved. You need sincerity even if it comes from one heart. And when that sincerity is missing from others, you find it in your relationship with your Creator. Because peace isn't something they can give you. It's something you have to find within yourself, through Him. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote? Self-worth is not measured by popularity. Or shall I expand more within this topic first? My dear sister, it's easy to feel small in a world that worships numbers. How many followers do you have? How many people showed up to your event? How many friends do you hang out with every week? How many hearts react to your post? We live in a time where the size of the crowd is mistaken for the size of your worth, but that is not the standard that Allah uses, that is not the standard of truth. You are not defined by who claps for you. You are defined by who you are when no one is watching. You could be unknown to the entire world and still be one of the most beloved souls to your Creator. You could be overlooked by society and still held in the highest honor by the angels. You could be someone whose name is never mentioned in conversations, and yet your name is written with light because of the purity of your heart, the sincerity of your intentions, the patience you carry, the quiet worship you offer in the early hours of the night. People often measure their worth by how seen they are, but in the eyes of Allah, the most powerful acts are sometimes the ones that go completely unnoticed by others, that door you whispered with tears. That sin you walked away from even though no one would have found out. That small charity you gave when you barely had enough for yourself. That time you forgave someone who never apologized. That strength it took to keep smiling when your heart was breaking. None of it went unseen, so don't let the absence of praise make you question your value. People praise based on what they see. Allah rewards based on what is real. And what is real is not your image, your popularity, your position in a social circle. What is real is your character, your sincerity, your heart. Some of the most honored women in history lived lives of pain, of silence, of sacrifice, yet they are remembered today not because of who followed them, but because of how they lived for their Lord. Not because of who celebrated them, but because of how they remained steadfast when no one else believed in them. Your worth is not something people can give you, and it is not something they can take away. There will be days where you feel invisible, days where your efforts go unnoticed, where you walk into a room and no one makes space, where you post something meaningful and no one responds, where you open your heart and no one listens. But those are not the moments that define you, because popularity is fragile, it fades, it changes with trends, with moods, with misunderstandings, with time. But your worth, your true God-given worth, is unshakable. It doesn't rise or fall with people's opinions. It doesn't need validation. It was written before you were born, and it remains even when no one sees you, even when you forget it yourself. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote? True friendship begins with Allah. Or expand this reflection even further before moving on. My dear sister, there is a kind of loneliness that even the most crowded rooms cannot fix, a kind of emptiness that not even the best friends can fill. You might have people who love you, people who check on you, people who care, and yet, deep inside, something still feels incomplete. Something still feels distant, hollow. That space in your heart, the one that no person seems able to occupy, is not a flaw. It's not something broken within you. That space was created for something higher. It was created for the most sacred connection a soul can ever experience. It was created for Allah. You see, true friendship doesn't begin with others. It doesn't begin with coffee dates or long texts or shared memories. True friendship begins with Allah. Because only when your heart is full of Him can you give and receive love in a way that's sincere, balanced, and rooted in peace. When your heart is empty of Allah, you begin to expect too much from people. You want them to understand everything, fix everything, be everything, and when they don't because they're human and they can't, you feel hurt. Disappointed, abandoned, but when Allah is your closest companion, your heart becomes steady. You don't chase, you don't beg. You don't break every time someone changes, because your anchor is not in people, it's in your Creator. And when the one who never leaves becomes your refuge, you stop fearing the absence of those who do. True friendship with Allah means you speak to Him the way you'd speak to your closest friend. You tell Him about your day, your fears, your confusion. You ask for guidance even in small things. You cry without shame. You smile with gratitude. You start to rely on Him in the way that brings your soul back to life, not just in hardship, but in ease too. And something beautiful begins to happen. The more you build your friendship with Allah, the more peaceful your relationships with people become. You stop expecting them to complete you. You start loving from a place of fullness, not need. You can walk away from what hurts without bitterness, because your heart has somewhere better to rest. When Allah becomes your closest friend, you no longer feel desperate for validation. You stop needing to explain yourself to everyone. You begin to walk with quiet confidence, not because you think you're perfect, but because you know you are being held by the one who is. And here's the secret many people miss. When you make Allah your best friend, He sends you people who reflect that light. He places in your life those whose hearts are also connected to Him, people who remind you of your purpose, people who care for you not for what you offer them, but because they see your soul, people whose presence is a mercy, not a test. But even if those people are few, or if they haven't arrived yet, don't let your heart panic. Don't rush the process, because once you have Allah, you already have enough. Would you like me to continue with the final keynote? Purpose in pain solitude can be a path to growth. Or go deeper into this theme before transitioning. My dear sister, pain has a way of slowing us down, of silencing the noise, of forcing us to sit with ourselves in a way we never planned to. And often that pain is accompanied by solitude, by quiet rooms, by unanswered messages, by long stretches of time where you feel like no one really sees what you're going through. It's in those very moments where the world feels far and Allah feels near that something remarkable starts to happen. Growth begins, but not the kind you can measure with the eyes, the kind that takes place deep within the soul. Quiet, invisible, real, solitude is not just emptiness. It is space. It is potential. It is where your heart has room to ask the deeper questions. Who am I really? What is this pain trying to teach me? What does Allah want from me in this moment, and what do I want from Him? You see, when life is full of distractions, when you're constantly surrounded by people, by noise, by expectations, you may find yourself reacting more than reflecting, moving more than growing, doing more than becoming, but solitude forces you to pause, and sometimes that pause is the greatest mercy in disguise. The pain that isolates you may actually be the invitation to meet yourself, to recognize patterns you've ignored, to let go of attachments that were never healthy, to break habits that have held you back for years, to stop pretending and finally be honest about where you are and where you need to go. Some of the strongest women were shaped in moments of loneliness, not when they were celebrated, but when they were forgotten, not when they had company, but when they were alone, just them and their Lord. It was in that stillness that they discovered their strength, not because the pain disappeared, but because they met it with sincerity, with faith, with surrender, and this is the secret many people overlook. Growth is often hidden inside of grief. The heartbreak that made you cry into your pillow, the loss that left you feeling numb, the friendship that faded when you needed it most, the silence from others that made you feel invisible. All of it, yes, all of it can become a bridge, not a wall, a lesson, not a punishment, a cleansing, not a curse, because the one who created your heart knows how to rebuild it. He doesn't allow pain for no reason. Every moment of discomfort is carrying something of purification, a redirection, a protection from something your eyes can't yet see. And if you allow that pain to soften your heart instead of harden it, if you lean into the solitude instead of fearing it, if you turn to Him in that quiet space and say, Ya Allah, I don't know what I'm becoming, but I trust you with the process, you will begin to taste a kind of peace this world cannot offer. You'll begin to realize that solitude isn't always a prison. Sometimes it's a classroom, sometimes it's a sanctuary, sometimes it's the soil in which your strongest self is planted in tears, in silence, in sujood, and slowly, beautifully, patiently. It begins to bloom. Would you like me to now help you transition into a powerful closing message, or keep expanding more into these themes? I'm here to support you. Ask ChatGPT.